Right guys, so this is part one of our first project together, and what we're going to be making is basically just a trinket bowl, the sort of thing that you would just have on the side of, I don't know, the kitchen windowsill, on a living room windowsill, on the stairs, on a little table somewhere, and you just drop things in, like your odd bits of change, maybe your car keys, that sort of thing. Now in this first video, part one, we're going to get it to this stage here, which is about 2/3 complete. Now what you will need is some air drying clay, and that's about it for now. And what you're going to do is you're going to take about a quarter of one of these blocks. Actually, it's probably more like a third. So basically, just cut through. Once you don't cut your fingers and what have you. Now, it's surprisingly tough, this stuff, when you first get it out of the package. Now, there's lots of brands on the market, but they all do pretty much the same. Air drying clay does exactly what it says on the tin. Right, so what you're going to do is you're just going to knead it a little bit, just going to work it, just to warm it up and sort of condition the clay, get it ready to be worked. So you're just going to, don't fold it. Not that it makes a lot of difference with air drying clay, but what we're doing is just warming it up, getting some movement into it, softening the clay through so that there's no hard lumps, because even air drying clay, even though it's sealed, I mean this stuff's been in the wrapper for 4 years now, it's still workable, but it does start to sort of like toughen is the better word. It doesn't harden, it toughens. So basically you're just kneading it, and as you feel it, you will feel where the tougher lumps are, and then you literally just give it a bit of a work, warm it up basically, get some heat into it. You'll soon see how quickly it softens up, you'll be surprised. Right, so that's just about ready to go. Make sure everything's out of the way. Right, so this is what we're aiming for in this session. Now we're going to start off by creating the stand first, and as you can see, it's about 1.5 inches. Right, so what we're going to do, just going to decide which way is up, roll it into a ball, doesn't have to be perfect, and then just pinch. I mean basically this whole thing is a pinch pot, what is known as a pinch pot. Now pinch pots can be the basis, the starting point for lots of things, like for instance Japanese chawans or tea bowls tend to start off as, traditional ones start off as pinch bowls. Right, so we're going to just pinch that up like that, and you're just going to gently push your thumb into the center and rotate it at the same time. So you end up with a delve in the center which is about as deep as the area you've just pinched up. There we go, and we'll just check that against that one. Yep, see, it's about as deep as it is. There we go. Now don't worry about being too exact at this point, because we will, at certain points in the process, increase this. We just got to get the basic outline. So you should now have something that looks like that. A bit sort of, for the older ones, Apollo moon lander shape. Right, so just rotate it slightly, make it a little bit more defined. You can do the same with the base. Just right there. Now what we're going to do now, just going to put a little bit of pressure just on there to round it off. You're now going to delve your thumbs, or one thumb, depending on which is more comfortable for you, into the centre of the top. Now don't just plunge your thumbs in, because that will tend to push the bottom out. What you're going to do is just going to make a delve on the opposite side to that, and when you get it about that deep, you're then going to start alternating with your thumbs. So you just press in and open up, press and open, and once you've got it about an inch deep, you're going to start both thumbs and just start to rotate and squeeze your hand together. Both hands just squeeze together, so you're basically pulling the thumb towards your hand while supporting the outside with your hand, which is allowing the thumb to stretch the material. Just take your time. Right, once you start getting as though you're down to the bottom, you do not want to go more than the same distance. So once your thumbs, I mean, you can measure your thumb there. If I just see my thumb, if I measure, put my finger there, or even put my finger there, it's gone about as far down as the top of that. That's about as far as you want to go at this point. So now you're just going to start working the rim. Now we've got a thin bit there, I don't know whether you can see. So what we're going to do is we're going to push on either side to push the material, push the clay back over to there. So we're going pushing from there to there, from there to there, just to build this little bit up a bit more. Now we're going to have to take extra care with that bit, just to make sure we don't thin it out too much. Right, so if you look, we're a little bit higher than that one. So what we're going to do now is we're going to continue, but we're just going to push out, pull out to the sides. And we don't want to make it any higher, but we're actually wanting to make it wider. So again, we're pushing out towards the sides as we rotate it and squeeze at the same time. So you can basically just keep going round, squeezing and pushing from the inside out, just to I'm just using one thumb, but I'm missing that bit where we were a bit thin earlier on, and I'm just pushing with my thumb against the inside and allowing my thumb to push the clay into my hand. Keeping an eye, or keeping a note of where it's thicker, work where it's thicker rather than the thinner bits. Miss the thin bits, otherwise they'll start to thin out too much. So we're working the clay from thick to thin. Right, so let's have a look. That little bit there, so we'll bring that round. Right, let's have a compare. Right, so we're about the same height now, but if you notice, we're only 2/3 of the way there. So what we're going to do now is hold in your right hand, in your left hand if you're right-handed, and just cup the base, and then where it's thickest, we're just going to, as we rotate, we're going to, using our thumb, we're going to draw, going to pull up, just slide your thumb over the inside surface of the bowl and just bring the clay from that area there up the sides. We're just going to let it, our thumbs grab hold. It's easy enough done, you'll feel exactly how it feels. And as we're rotating, you see where these fingers are? I'm holding this, but as we're rotating and I'm drawing up with my thumb, I'm making sure that my fingers go down to support the base there. So we're just working the clay around. You'll feel as it starts to thin out. If it starts to thin out, you just put it down and then just gently push the clay from around the thin area into to take up the space. So you're basically pushing clay back in to thicken it out again. Right, so redefine this. This is what I meant about redefining this every now and again. Just going to squeeze up with your fingertips. Now if you notice, we've got a different profile. We've got a more triangular profile than a rounded one. So the way to do that is just put it on the table, rotate it slightly so that smooths off, and then again we're pushing out with both thumbs this time across the bottom of the inside surface, and we're just gently moving the clay around a little bit at a time and slowly widening the base of the bowl and pushing the sides out. Again, take your time. I'm going a little bit quick with this just because I don't want to have a half-hour long video. Right, so as you feel you're getting the width right of the bowl, then start to work into the corners with both thumbs, moving the clay around. There's a thin bit there, so we're going to push a little bit more clay round into there, and we're just going to put a little bit of pressure, outwards pressure, so we're pushing out with our thumbs into the side of the bowl, and you should start to see the profile change. See how it's starting to come around? I'm assuming from what I can't really see very well. A little bit further to go, but we're getting there. Now it's at this point that it can actually start to become lopsided if you're not careful. You've got to remember that as you are moving the clay, you've got to turn the bowl. Otherwise you can find yourself pushing in one area more than you realised, and the ball starts to get a little bit lopsided. So we're just moving more clay from the centre to the outside, and I've got so it's just a case of constantly moving the clay around until you're happy with it. That's better. I guess. Oh, see, now we're getting a little bit lopsided there. Can you see? So we're just going to move some more of the clay over to that side from the bottom of the bowl. This is why you didn't want to go too far down into the bowl, because you're going to need that clay later on. See, all I'm doing now is I'm dragging my thumb across, and that slowly brings small amounts of clay over to the base of the wall. And at that point you can start to move it up the wall of the bowl. Now the good thing about air drying clay is you can do as much to it or as little as you like. It's good for the kids because they can literally just grab a ball of it and just make whatever they want to. They can use pastry cutters, they can do all sorts. But at the same time, you can go that little bit further and start to make something a little bit more ceramic-like, and less childlike. Not that there's anything wrong with childlike production. Kids have got to start somewhere, and I think adults as well could do with a little bit of childlike production. methods. Right, so let's see where we are. Right, we're not quite the same, we're actually quite a little bit smaller, but I'm more pleased with the thickness of the sides, to be honest. Now, if you were wanting to make exactly the same ball every single time, you'd weigh the amount of clay you're going to be using. I didn't, I've just roughly estimated it. So we could end up with two slightly different sized balls here. Close, but not quite the same because we've got different amounts of clay. If you wanted to be exact, you would weigh it. For instance, that's a 1 kilo block. You could actually cut it into 4. 25 grams of clay would make about a ball about that size, or a quarter of a kilo would make up something about that size. Right, so I think we're just about finished for this stage. Just do a final manipulate and a final smooth. Just going to turn that over and we're just going to rotate it on the table just to smooth out. Right, so now if you feel around the lip, you can feel where it's thicker and where it's thinner. And if you just move the clay around a little bit, move it from thick to thin until it's fairly even. And there's a lump there. I don't know where that lump came from. Now by this time you will feel it starting to dry. Now don't worry about that, that's just the surface drying. And it's not a bad thing, but what you will notice is it dries on the outside where you stop working it quicker. If you continue to work it, the surface will stay workable. Like for instance this one, this is a few hours old now, but the inner surface I can still move about. The outer surface is quite hard and quite firm, but the inner I can still move a little bit of that clay around just to smooth it off. Right, so we're almost done. Let's have a look. Can't really see. Yeah, I think we're okay there. Looks alright. So all we're going to do now is just going to put your fingers underneath and just push and pull the clay to centralize everything. So you've got equal amounts of overhang next to the foot. This is the foot, by the way. And then as you're feeling around, try and equal out the thickness of the clay by moving the clay around inside the ball. Right, so I think we're good with that one. Now what we're going to do now is we are going to make sure everything's equal in terms of thickness, or as equal as we can get it without starting to really pull and push. Go around the top a little bit, do the same. You don't have to be too perfect at this point. I mean, if the kids were doing it, you could say, that's fine, you can leave it like that if you want to. They get bored quickly once they get to this point. Because now we are just literally just finessing. We're gently pushing and pulling to equalise the thickness of the walls and the height above the foot and the overhang and things like that. So, we're now going to put that to one side for about an hour, hour and a half. And what that will do is it will allow, and actually if you turn it upside down, and just rotate it a little bit, and what that will do is the outside will start to harden up, will start to toughen up. See the difference? That one's still wet inside and out. This one starting to harden up. So what we're going to do now, while supporting the foot, we just give it a bit of a nip up, just a redefine. You'll feel it's actually quite soft there just under the surface, just where you can feel the softness, just push in with the edge of your thumb, and in the foot as well. Don't worry too much, because we're going to trim them up at a later date. Now trimming can be quite hard with air drying clay, because you've got to let it firm up to a certain point, that way past what you would do if you were using kiln hardening clay. But anyway, so all we're doing now is holding the ball in your hand and just using your thumb, how we were with that earlier on, but you can put a little bit more pressure to it. Now we're not thickening or thinning the walls here. We are literally equalising everything, making sure that the walls, the floor, everything, every part of it is roughly the same thickness. That's all we're doing, just going around. If we feel a thin bit, move some clay with your thumb, just push the clay across into the thinner area. But what we're also doing as well is we're just smoothing off with your thumb, just rubbing your thumb over the surface, and as you equalise the thickness, you're actually smoothing off as well. Now, one of the reasons for doing this is that the smoother you can make the inside, the better. Because when it comes to finishing and decorating, we need everything as smooth as possible. The hardest part to smooth out after it's hardened is the inside of the bowl. So the smoother we get that now, the better. So we're literally just... Now when you know you've gone too far, or what, the correct point to stop, I should say, is when you feel the surface start to ball up underneath your thumb. It starts to loosen up. That means that the damp clay is really starting to toughen up now. And at that point, if you go too much further, you're going to start to develop cracks. So you don't need to do much more than that once you get to that point there. But I think we're just about ready. And all we're doing now is we're just giving it a gentle tease to make sure everything's centralised. And again, fingers underneath the shoulders, up to the foot, just to make sure we're roughly the same sort of thickness all the way around. There's a bit of a thin bit there that needs to be moved over. I think that's where they didn't pay much attention to the outside. But never mind. Yeah, I think we're going to leave that now because it's starting to ball up under my thumb. Right, so that is stage one. So it didn't take long. The hardest part is actually putting it to one side and leaving it alone. Once it starts to toughen up. Now with this one, again, just give it a, just give it a quick finesse, and then put it on upside down, and then let it sit for an hour. 2 hours. 3 at most. Don't let it sit for any more than 3 hours. You'll notice when you come back to it that the outer surface is actually quite hardened up, quite toughened. Not a problem. It just means if you let it harden too much, you'll have more to do when we're coming up to finishing the project. But anyway, there we go. So that's stage one. Now I'll put that on one side, I'm going to leave it alone, and we'll come back to it in the next video, where we'll show you where we're going next, as in refinishing and what have you. Anyway, hope you found that interesting. Cheers guys, and we'll talk again soon.